Okay, everybody, last set of video lecture notes. I have your challenge questions on Sherwood Anderson, and I thought you guys did a really nice job with your responses, which makes me feel good about the fact that we maybe didn't have as full a discussion in class as we needed, because you're clearly picking up on the major themes. A lot of questions relating to the notion of the sexuality in the poems, the repressed desires, and a lot of observations about the use of religious imagery in the stories as well. Um, I thought that there's a question from Zane about mother. We're going to talk mostly about mother in this episode because we talked about mother in class and sort of laid out the basic outlines, and I think we kind of get the gist of it. But what is Mother ailing from in the short story Mother? I thought, Zane, that was a good question. And so this is the way we might think about this, in the same way that characters in the other vignettes from Winesburg, Ohio, are being treated, and in the same way we saw these characters explored in Spoon River, in the poems. And that's that every character seems to have some sort of something that is troubling them. And so, what is it about the mother? And the title story is Mother. And the cliche is about, in Freudian psychoanalytic uh, circles, tell me about your mother. But it's true that we have this relationship with our mother that can be stifling, it can be conflicting, it can be, it's a very complicated thing. And for George Willard, the main character in these stories, the narrator who runs throughout all the stories, the relationship with his mother is incredibly repressive. And in the collection of stories, Winesburg, Ohio, he is only liberated when his mother dies. So as long as he is in this town, Winesburg, he's going to be under kind of the power and the sway of the mother. So that being said, what is ailing the mother from in the short story is she seems to have a physical illness, but it's unspecified and unclear in the story, but it really is debilitating. Mostly we could say in a modern understanding she's suffering from depression, perhaps. She could be psychosomatic. She could be manifesting illness and symptoms that are mostly from her psychological lack of fitness, and mental health might sort of help her. She doesn't want to be seen by people in this hotel, and so there's something going on there. So we'll look at a couple passages here that should answer that question. And then many of you asked about Lydia. You asked about this, the dark depictions of the Willard Hotel. Is there a metaphor there? Let's see. In Lonnie, you said in Mother, what is the significance of the hotel? How does the setting influence the characters? I think these are definitely, there are dark images, dark romanticism within Mother, according to Kayla. And so I think we're really touching upon something about this story. And then, as Jessica asked, from a Freudian perspective, how might one interpret Elizabeth Willard's obsession with her son and hatred towards her husband? So yeah, so the illness, we all get it. So there's something going on with Mother in this story. There's something that is conflicting her, something that is repressed in her, and it's trying to find an expression. Unhealthily, it seems, through her son. And we talked about this in class, how both the mother and the father seem to be manipulating George to try and live their lives that are disappointing and constrained in this small town through their son. And he is therefore under this sort of repressed regime, and he's in this repressed town, and I think he's in this repressed hotel. And, it's like the Hotel California. You can, check in anytime you like, but you can never leave. And you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. He is evincing a desire to leave this shabbiness, this darkness. And I think the hotel is a perfect metaphor as well, because it goes back to um, Elizabeth Willard's um, desire to uh, she's brought up in this lifestyle with a hotel. She inherits this hotel, and it has these people coming and going that she thinks has more interesting lives because they're coming and going from outside of Winesburg, Ohio. They try to tell her, no, it's just a job. These acting troops, these businessmen. She's reaching out for some sort of contact and sort of significance outside of this small town atmosphere. And the hotel is almost like a tantalizing parade of people, at least when she was younger, of what this wider world is outside. And now it's this rundown thing, and it is very dark. And of course, it seems to be metaphoric of her own illness and her own husband's self importance. And just kind of a dreary, sort of modern dilemma sort of attitude. We have again this idea of trying to find solace and meaning in larger things. These dreams on page 257 and then on to 258. As we see in the other stories, a lot of emphasis on dreams. Between Elizabeth and her one son, George, there was a deep, unexpressed bond of sympathy based on a girlhood dream that had long ago died. And then it's coupled with this notion. So many of you wrote about the dream imagery in some of the other stories as well. So that's a good point. Freud obviously was all about dreams and dream interpretation. So there's something about dreams. But I think also we should take a moment to not be so reductive and looking at everything through this psychoanalytic lens. It could be that part of what is being expressed in these stories is disappointment and a sense of loss that is part of this modern condition that I think is good fodder for any sort of short story or expressive art. We see it in writing today and short story. People have ideals and expectations and dreams for their lives, and then when they fall short, we sort of think about how, and a lot of art and literature has been written about our expectations versus reality, right? And so there's a lot of disappointment and a lot of desire for a larger meaning and purpose in life. That gets expressed in a lot of literature because I think people who write these stories are feeling it. They're feeling this sort of conflicted sense of, wanting to have something more in life. And so Elizabeth Willard definitely sort of encompasses this, and this sort of idea that she has this that she goes to the door, kneels by a desk, made at the kitchen table, and sat near a window. In the room by the desk, she went through a ceremony that was half a prayer and half a demand addressed to the skies. In the boyish figure, she yearned to see something half forgotten that had once been a part of herself recreated. The prayer concerned that even though I die, I will someday keep defeat from you, my son George. And she glowed and clenched her fists. If I am dead and see him becoming a meaningless drab figure like myself, I will come back, she declared. I ask God now to give me that privilege. I demand it. I will pay for it. God may beat me with his fists. I will take any blow that may befall if but this my boy be allowed to express something for us both, living through the sun, right? And then the term is this communion between George Willard and his mother was outwardly a formal thing without meaning. And then it's followed by this scene that sort of captures this. She's her son, a dutiful son, will come. He's a sympathetic guy, and he worries about his mother. He sits with her, and they look out the window, and they look at the scene at the bakery, and this cat is going into the bakery and having this continuous battle with the baker every day. They sort of see this transacted. The cat's going in and stealing scraps or something like that, and the baker comes out and chases into this dirty alley that's swarming with flies. And it ends with this. After that, she did not look along the alleyway anymore, but tried to forget the contest between the bearded man and the cat. It seemed like a rehearsal of her own life, terrible in its vividness. I don't know what that means. That's the sort of thing we might discuss in class to try and see if there is an interpretation that is broader that can be brought to bear here. But something is represented in that feral sort of notion that this desperate searching for meaning or purpose in life. I don't know. She feels constrained like the cat. So that the sort of case study that we have of Elizabeth as the story emerges more fully is that when she was younger, these traveling performers used to come through town, and she always felt like she has this shaky reputation. We're told as a child, she used to, sleep around with these guests at her father's hotel. She was looking for an outlet through the lives of these traveling performers. She thought, well, this is a kind of art that Freud might say we could sublimate into something, useful to sort of transform our desires and our energies. And I love this passage on page 260 and 261 where she is sort of being described as this kind of, and it's interesting because she has kind of this, she dresses in men's clothes and she has kind of this androgynous sense, and then she has this very interesting response to the sexual encounters she has with all these people. She says, they did not seem to know what she meant, or if she did get something of her passion expressed, they only laughed. It's not like that, this life on the road as these entertainers. It's dull and uninteresting as this here. Nothing comes of it. With the traveling men, when she walked about with them, and later with Tom Willard, it was quite different. Always they seemed to understand and sympathize with her well. It could be because they're after something else there. On the side streets in the village, in the darkness under the trees, they took hold of her hand, and she thought that something unexpressed in herself. Unexpressed is an interesting term. Expression is kind of a key idea in Freudian analysis. How do these things express or manifest themselves on the surface? Expressed in herself came forth and became part of unexpressed something in them. And then there was the second expression, a very clinical term, of her restlessness. And this second expression is sexual. When that came, she felt for a time released and happy. She did not blame the men who walked with her, and later she did not blame Tom Willard. It was always the same, beginning with kisses and ending after strange wild emotions with peace and sobbing repentance. When she sobbed, she put her hand upon the face of the man and had always the same thought. Even though he were large and bearded, there's that beard again, she thought he had become suddenly a little boy. She wondered why he did not sob also. So there's some interesting issues going on with boyhood, boyish figures, androgyny, who knows what else. She puts on this makeup right after this sort of background scene, and then this bizarre sort of thing with this grotesque makeup, and she's in the dark and she's going to go get the scissors and kill her husband. And then because she had overheard this conversation where her husband, we talked about this in class, was trying to live through her, perhaps trying to live through their son. She wants to live through the son. She doesn't want the son to be the expression of the father. Also there's something about not being womanish, don't be a little girl kind of boy. So there's something interesting going on there. But anyway, she's in this makeup, she's in this crazy sort of state, and her son comes in, and it's a darkened room, so he doesn't know that she's like, really losing it here. And they have that conversation. She says, I can't make you understand, but oh, I wish I could. I can't even talk to Father about it. I don't try. There isn't any use. I don't know what I shall do. I just want to go away and look at people and think. And he says, I suppose it won't be a year or two, but I've been thinking about it, he said, rising, goes toward the door. Something Father said makes it sure that I will have to go away. He fumbled with the doorknob. In the room, a silence became unbearable to the woman. She wanted to cry out with joy because the words had come from the lips of her son. And what are the actual words? This is always part of our discussion in class. We don't know what it was that he said that is striking her so much. But the expression of joy had become impossible to her. I think you had better go out among the boys. You are too much indoors, she said. I thought I would go for a little walk, replied the son, stepping awkwardly out of his room and closing the door. So they go back to this sort of routine that makes them feel comfortable. It's sad, dark. We don't really know what to make of the ending. It's indeterminate. They're trapped in this routine that is not healthy, and we can only hope that somehow we're going to have an escape. And as we know by the end of the story collection, the only escape for George is when his mother dies. So there you go. Freud. Okay. Thanks for listening.